All right, welcome back to SportsLine, everybody. John Burton back with you till the top of the hour. Your phone calls welcome. 737-7767 is the number to call. Right now we're going to talk some hockey on a 97-degree Wednesday night here in Nashville, Tennessee. And we're going to bring in our good buddy, friend of the show, friend period, the man who literally wrote the book on hockey in the city of Nashville, Tennessee, the making of Smashville, from Penalty Box Radio, hockey expert Justin Bradford. Justin, how are you tonight, buddy?
Doing all right, John. Thanks for having me on again. It's always good to be able to talk some hockey in late June.
Yeah. I looked at my temperature in my car. It was up to 97 today. So why not talk some hockey? First of all, how are you holding up? Are you going through withdrawals? It's been a few days since the Penguins clinched the Stanley Cup. Not a lot of hockey action tonight, or going on. Period. I know the NHL awards are going on. How are you holding up? I'm worried about you, JB.
No, I'm doing just fine. It's one of those things, especially the big-time professional writers, that it's their big job on TV, like Bob McKenzie and some of the ESPN folks. They look forward to the off-season finally once free agency's over with, and they get to take those 2 months off and go to their cottages and everything. I just go to another job. But it's been kind of nice, actually, to have some time off, because it's really busy during playoffs, especially every other night. And I mean, even looking forward to next season with the schedule just getting released yesterday, it's going to be a very, very busy year with a little bit of a condensed schedule, seeing as how there's the World Cup of Hockey going on to begin the season. Then each team has bye weeks for the first time as well. The season will still end at the same time. So this year was great. Next year will be really condensed, almost similar to the lockout season a few years ago. But I'm doing just fine. I'm ready for the draft this weekend, going to cover that up in Buffalo.
Yeah, my old neck of the woods, upstate New York, Buffalo, New York, where I lived for 4 years. That should be exciting. The NHL draft is always a fun time. I think back to what Don Cherry would always say about the prospects. I remember one year he went on a tirade, if you can believe it, Don Cherry going on a tirade, saying something to the effect of, look, if you don't know if you're going to be drafted, don't go. I've seen guys go there, not get drafted. Mom's crying, grandma's crying, everybody's crying. If you don't think you're going to get drafted, don't go. So maybe you'll run into grapes while you're up there. It's just a short trek down the road from Toronto.
Well, actually, I am driving to the draft because plane tickets were so expensive. And luckily, I had a sponsor to help cover the gas costs and the hotel costs. But it's going to be quite the trek to get to Buffalo and to get back this weekend for my game on Sunday night. Well,
safe travels. All right, let's get into this. Sure. Gary Bettman making it official today in Vegas, side of the NHL awards, which are, of course, going on right now. The NHL is coming to Vegas. They're getting an expansion team. Is that good for the league? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, it is the worst kept secret in hockey, as we all pretty much knew this was coming months ago, and especially when it got teased last week with some people getting some leaked news about it. But you know what? As someone who covers a team that's in the Sun Belt per se, I think it's good for the league to get into Vegas because, one, it's the first professional team, the first pro team, and the top of the league that they play in to be in Vegas. Yeah, they've had minor league hockey there. They've had minor league baseball. They've had minor league basketball. They've had minor league football. They've had random football, the XFL, in Vegas. But they've never had that actual professional team that's at the top of their league, and they're finally going to have it with a hockey team. So I think it's good for Vegas. It's one of those things that when you hear what Bill Foley had to say, the owner, where they want to invite visiting fans, and they know that's what it's going to take to help establish that team there, is visiting fans coming, tourism, but also build on that with the locals there, because they do have a lot of locals there, but they have lots of support with casinos, with tourism industry. So there's actually a lot of potential there in Las Vegas for them to be successful, and they do have some growth in hockey there. It's going to take time, but with the expansion draft rules being changed a little bit, they have a really good opportunity of being a competitive team really early on in their franchise's history compared to expansion when the Predators came in and when the Thrashers came in with Atlanta, Blue Jackets. The expansion rules are really going to help that team be competitive way more early than it was before.
Justin Bradford is our guest for Penalty Box Radio. All right, you mentioned that expansion draft, and that has, I believe, some Predators fans a little bit concerned because there's only so many players you can protect. There's talk of Shea Weber possibly not being protected, maybe taking the chance that the Las Vegas team would not want to take on his huge salary. I know we're about a year away from this. What are your early thoughts on how this Vegas team coming in and this expansion draft could affect the Nashville Predators?
You know, I see so much of that online where people are freaking out like, oh my gosh, this is going to be really bad for the Predators and everything. Well, you know, every team is going to lose a player, at least one player. So it's even where that every team has to go through this and every fan base will have to go through this. Now, granted, it's tough for the Predators because the way that general manager David Boyle has built this team, especially on the blue line, and the way the expansion draft rules, for those of you that may not be too familiar with it, is you have two different options where you can save 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and 1 goaltender, or 8 skaters, splitting that between forwards and defensemen and 1 goaltender. Mm-hmm. Now, the other rule with that is a player that has a no movement clause has to be protected, and one of those is Pecorine. So the aging goaltender that the Predators have has to be protected. So you go into it now, what do you do? Because you have 4 really good defensemen on the team in Weber, Yossi, Ekholm, and Ellis. Well, that means you probably want to go the 8 skater route. But then what do you want to do about forwards? What do you want to do about this and that? And there's so many players in the system as well that could be playing their pro years in Milwaukee. And if they play more than 2 years total by the next summer, then they're eligible to be picked. But then again, it's one player from that team that's going to get picked, and it's strategy behind that. So I think it's one of those things that the players that I would protect, to kind of throw that out there, mm-hmm. as it stands now, would be Weber, Yossi, Ellis, Ekholm, Johansson, Smith, Forsberg, and Neal, as it stands now. Now, I think something I want to remind so many of the Predators fans and even hockey fans in general about these expansion rules is that a lot changes for every team in one season.
Sure.
Trades happen, injuries happen. You know, there's so many things that could happen that could change this all just within this draft, because who knows how many trades could happen this weekend in Buffalo, and who knows what David Boyle might have up his sleeve in Buffalo. So that's what I would do right now as it stands, but so much can change in one season, and that's with any sport. So I think it's one of those things that the fans just have to pump the brakes a little bit. Let's wait till we get to next spring before we really start looking deep at it, because trades could happen. We've seen it before. I know there are other teams in the last expansion draft that made trades as basically a guarantee of, well, you're not going to pick this player, we'll trade you this player. How about that? A lot of gentlemen's agreements going on. So it'll be really interesting. You know, I'm kind of excited for it because it's the first time as an adult and covering hockey this has happened, because I was in high school last time.
Right. Justin Bradford is our guest from Penalty Box Radio. We're talking hockey on a very hot and sweltering Wednesday night here in Nashville, Tennessee. I want to get to the draft in just a minute, but first of all, you know, you've had a few weeks to digest this past Nashville Predators season. Of course, you know, getting as far as they've ever gotten in the playoffs as a franchise, winning a Game 7, losing another Game 7. What do you think some of the factors, I guess, looking forward, what does this team need from a personnel standpoint to maybe go a little further next year, maybe get to the Western Conference Finals, maybe push for a Stanley Cup final berth?
You know, I really think what the team needs is experience, and that's what they got.
Yeah.
When you look at the way this team ran for the majority of the season and even the playoffs, where you had 4 or 5 rookies playing into the second round and having to go through 4 elimination games and traveling cross country, I think that bodes so well for this team, and that's why I don't think you're going to see too many changes this offseason, as you do sometimes in years past where there may be half rebuilding years, you're trying to make some big-time changes. This team's pretty much set. Now, there could be a free agent that maybe approaches the team. There could be a couple out there that really do give the Predators some options and show interest in joining the organization. But I really do think a lot of what's going to bode well for next season is the experience that players like Cal Yarncroke receive playing on the top line sometimes or filling in roles. Philip Forsberg in his amazing season, and even Ryan Johansson being the number 1 center and having to change his scenery. But then you look at guys like Colton Sissons, Mika Salamäki, Victor Arvidsson. You know, a lot of these kids have so much experience, and you look at a player like Victor Arvidsson, who has kind of that Patrick Hornquist tenacity, which helped the Pittsburgh Penguins in their run in the playoffs, that if he can just put the puck in the back of the net more, he's going to really help this team, because he gets to the net, he gets to those dirty areas, he crashes the net all the time, he likes to cause a little bit of a ruckus, and he likes to shoot the puck, and those are a lot of the things that go well with being a good player that can contribute. So I think it's experience that's going to really help this team. If there were a piece that I'd like to see them add, it'd be another top 6 winger and another veteran defenseman that actually can skate really well and move the puck. There's nothing against Barrett Jackman, but I think the way this team is built is that defensemen are built to activate, but also you have to back check really well. That's what you're counted on. And so if they could add another piece like that, okay. If not, I still think they're going to be just fine because they're still one of the most solid blue lines in the league.
Justin, you mentioned the Pittsburgh Penguins. Obviously, they go on to win the Stanley Cup, second time for Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and company. I really thought the Sharks had a great chance to win this series. I was just very impressed with the way that they played, especially in the series against the Nashville Predators. What do you think some of the keys were to the Pens going all the way and hoisting Lord Stanley's Cup?
Yeah, getting hot at the right time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of those things that we see every single year, especially in hockey, that I don't think many people were talking about the Penguins, especially going into the playoffs with the matchups they had as well, having to go against Washington Capitals and Alex Ovechkin and Braden Holtby, and Holtby was shutting down so many people, and just the way the team was playing, Sidney Crosby not having the best season, still obviously a phenomenal season for him, and especially with the way he performed in the playoffs. But
yeah, Justin, not voted into the All-Star game. Sidney Crosby, this guy's the face of the league. I was shocked when that happened.
Yeah, and so I think that it's one of those things that you see so often, that it's getting hot at the right time. And it's not that the Sharks didn't, because the Sharks also got hot at the right time too. They were having a par season per se, but then they got hot in the playoffs and they faced an even hotter Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, the thing with the Penguins is they have the talent. It wasn't one of those things where, well, how did they win this? It's so shocking. It's not shocking at all when you have players like Crosby and Malkin and Hornquist and all those on the team. But what really was shocking more so was that the goaltending and how Murray stepped up.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's the one who should have won the Conn Smythe Award. Because he's the one that carried that team when they really needed him, and was just thrust into that position to have to go and make a deep playoff run. So I really think the talent came together the way it's supposed to. They had the right coach at the right time for that team, and they had veteran players like Matt Cullen contributing when they really needed to. So it's really good. I really am happy for people like Matt Cullen to see him win another cup, and for Patrick Hornquist, who's worked so hard his entire career, who's known as Mr. Irrelevant before in the draft for the Predators, to see him go on and to be able to hoist that cup and the hard work that he puts into his game. So it's good to see that happen. The Sharks had an amazing team, as we know, with the Predators playing against them and just pretty much getting dominated. But they just couldn't put it together. But it bodes well for that city to finally make a cup final run. So it really is good for hockey in that market there.
Talking hockey with Justin Bradford here on SportsLine. All right, I just got back from vacation today, Justin. Please do not be offended when I say this, because I know you're heading up to Buffalo to cover this, but I did not know that the NHL draft was starting on Friday. So if you can, bring me up to speed, bring us up to speed with what the Predators might do, who they might be looking for, I guess, position-wise as we get ready for the draft. And obviously the Preds having the luxury of being able to pick in the first round, something they haven't done most recently.
Absolutely, and it's a big deal, too. Just to give some backstory on this, is that Predators have 8 picks in this draft, and they acquired that 8th pick, which is in the 3rd round, by trading the rights to Jimmy Vesey, who was a very popular talking point back in the spring, the top prospect for the Predators, who was picked in the 3rd round a few years ago, and then all of a sudden decided he's not going to sign with the Predators, and because he was finishing college, he's able to wait until August to become a free agent to sign with any team he wants to, if he'd like to do that, and that's what he decided. Well, General Manager David Poile was able to work out a deal to send him to Buffalo for his 3rd-round pick in return. So, if anything, no matter what happens now, the Predators organization got something in return by Jimmy Vesey deciding not to sign. Instead of absolutely nothing, they got something. A 3rd-round pick is a really good pick, so you can make a lot of a 3rd-round pick. And Buffalo, the reason why Vesey going to Buffalo, they have high hopes they can sign Vesey because Jack Eichel, their superstar up there, has the same agent as Jimmy Vesey, and they apparently are pretty good friends. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. But to get back to the Predators in the draft, they have 8 picks right now. In the 1st round, they pick at 17. in the second round, 47, and then they have, this will be fun to cover now, as a fellow sports guy when it comes to draft picks being so close together. In the third round, they have 76 and 78.
Huh.
So it'll be one of those things where I think most of the Predators media that are going to be there are just going to wait for 78 to get over with before they make that big rush down the stairs up in Buffalo. But I think it bodes well for the Predators in their position because of the way the draft is stacking up. I personally think that they need defense right now, and people might say, why would the Predators need defense? Look at the blue line they have now. Well, as we all know with sports, you're picking for the future.
Yeah.
Shea Weber's not getting any younger. And, yeah, Roman Josi, Ellis, and Ekholm are still very young, but you need assets. And when you see the Predators right now in the organization, there's a huge drop-off in talent right after Anthony Potato, especially with some players leaving to go play in Europe, and you have other players like Taylor Aronson deserting the organization at the end of the regular season in Milwaukee. So it's important, I think, to restock the cupboard on defense. They have lots of offensive power right now in the cupboard with Yakov Trenin and Kevin Fiala, Pontus Aberg. There's a lot of good talent there at the forward position, so now they need to restock on defense. There's a player that I scouted back in March that plays for the Windsor Spitfires, who also produced another good defenseman for the Nashville Predators in Ryan Ellis. Mm-hmm. But that player that I'm looking at is Logan Stanley. Now, the thing with this kid, he's 6'7" and 220 pounds at 18 years old. So you can only imagine the amount of bulk that he could put on and what he could possibly do in the next few years as he's developing as a defenseman and adding some more weight, adding some more muscle. He plays with a very physical tenacity, and he's kind of a stay-at-home defenseman but can activate when needed, and he's good with position, and he's a good skater. So it's one of those kinds of players that right now he's ranked close to where the Predators may pick. Some ISS Hockey International Scouting Services has him ranked 25th. Central Scouting for the NHL has him ranked 19th out of North American skaters. So he's right in that area. There's so many defensemen there, but I really do think the Predators are going to go defense. General Manager David Poyle says they're going with the best player available, but I do think the best player available at 17 is going to be a defenseman. They have Charlie McAvoy, Dante Fabro, Jake Bean. There's so many defensemen that are in that mid-teens area, so I think that's the route they're going to go.
Justin, you mentioned a number of things, among them being Pekka Rinne. Of course, he's north of 30 now. You have to wonder how much longer he can continue to play at a high level. How well are the Predators stocked right now in their system at goaltender?
Well, the big name right now, especially among Predators fans that dig deep into prospecting and really look what the future holds, and that's Jussi Saros. And I know I'm butchering that a little bit because when I asked him how to say his name, pretty much only Finnish people can say the name correctly. Way it is with the vowels. But Jussi Saros is the closest you can get to it. But he played his first full season in North America last year with the Milwaukee Admirals, and he was phenomenal. He was absolutely stellar in the way he played. He won, had 38 games played, had a 2.24 goals against and a 92% save percentage, which is phenomenal, especially when having to adjust to North American ice. And he's a little bit smaller. You know, in Nashville, we're used to tall goaltenders, and we've had that so often, especially with Pekka Rinne, Anders Lindback, and going on back, even Dan Ellis. But here, Jussi Saros is listed at 5'10", but he's able to use his size to his advantage in the way he's able to rebound and get to the puck and protect the net. And I think that bodes well for the franchise and the way he's performing. And he was one of those kinds of diamonds in the rough they found, and that's what people are kind of concerned about. What happens next? They just re-signed Marek Mazanec. They don't know what's going to happen with Carter Hutton. It looks like he's going to test free agency. So Saros is the definite starter in Milwaukee. He's the future of the goaltending aspect for the Nashville Predators. I think it's still a little bit before we see him. He could get a call-up, but it's one of those things that's why you have Pekka Rinne. He's going to play probably upwards of 65 to 70 games next year. There's no reason to bring in your future to back up when he's not going to get playing time.
Do you think Poyle would like to re-sign Carter Hutton, if all things being equal?
I think so, and he did mention that at the end of the season press conference back in May. And it's one of those things. I think he would like to re-sign him, but I think Carter, he knows he can play more games, and he understands what his role was here in Nashville. So I think he's wanting to test free agency just to see what's out there, because there's no doubt that he could potentially play more games with another organization, especially behind Pekka Rinne. So it's testing those waters, and who knows, he may still end up coming back because the Predators may have the best offer. I do think if he goes out there that there's teams out there that could really use his services, because he should be able to play 25 games or 30 games in a season. I think he has the talent to do that. He's not a starter, but he's a very good backup and in that position. And so we'll see what happens there with Carter Hutton, but I think that's why they went ahead and re-signed Mazinitz to his deal, just to go ahead and solidify the position a little bit more. And that's why they went ahead and signed another goaltender that could be used in Milwaukee or Cincinnati too.
Justin, great stuff. We love having you on. Get your plugs in. How can people keep up with you?
Absolutely. Well, I'm on Twitter at Justin B. Bradford, and you can go to penaltyboxradio.com. We'll have so much coverage of the draft this weekend. It is ridiculous, from Facebook Live videos to other video coverage, graphics, stories, a little bit of everything from the draft. So hoping to be that source that people need for these prospects. We have lots of scouting reports on all these players as well. So anything that people need to learn about the players the Predators pick this weekend in Buffalo, you're going to be able to find it on Penalty Box Radio. And
your book, The Making of Smashville, still available, I assume?
Absolutely. The Making of Smashville, still on Amazon. So Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, wherever books are sold, and a lot of times locally, even at the local Walgreens, I've seen The Making of Smashville.
That's outstanding. Well, safe travels to Buffalo. I recommend Cole's Restaurant on Elmwood. Best wings in town. Best wings you ever had in your life, trust me. I grew up eating that kind of stuff. So safe travels, and we look forward to having you on again real soon, Justin. Thanks.
All right, thanks, John. Appreciate it.
All right, that is the great Justin Bradford schooling us on some hockey as we get ready for the NHL draft. And, of course, the NHL getting an expansion team starting in 2017, 2018 in Las Vegas. We'll take another break. We'll get you some of your phone calls in, play some interviews. Don't forget, 8:45, Virgil Herring, PGA teaching professional, will be on. We'll recap the U.S. Open and a lot more. Stay with us.